So that needs to be updated. I've been a nurse now 45 years, and I've gone to a lot more protein and moderate fat, but we all are on a journey. So thank you for being here today. We're going to chew on some stuff this morning. All right? Have you ever had something, let's chew the fat, or, I have to chew on that for a little bit? So that's the topic. And we're going to talk about a mixture of things, and I want to let each of you know that there is a connection between us all. We're here for a reason, and we each desire a better life, not a better weight. We think that's why we're here. It's because we were put here for a purpose, and we're here to help each other. And if you're not one of my mentors, like Dr. Westman and others, or a current friend, I'd like you to make sure, if you'd like to say hello, to come up, because we're going to talk about some things, especially this. What you don't know may hurt you. If you listen to commercials and you sit and watch TV for any length of time, or you don't pay for the YouTube Premium and you get those ads dropped in, there'll be an advertisement for a weight loss program. And then they'll have a big chocolate cake as the next commercial, and then it's a weight loss program again, or a pharmaceutical ad, right? So it's cyclical. We're bombarded. And so what you don't know may hurt you. I've been a nurse. I started this journey when I was 59. I'm 66 today. And I'll be 66 tomorrow. No, I'm going to be 66 for a whole year. But anyway, what you do know may help heal you. What you're going to learn, the takeaways here, everything from movement and the power of building muscle and why that's so important as we age. These are the things that can help you choose. What are you willing to trade? What aches and pains, as Joe said, are you willing to trade by changing what you eat? What are you going to give up, and what are you going to gain? And so this is from the Old Testament. For lack of knowledge, my people perish. There's a tsunami of chronic illness, not just here, but every country in the world that's adopted the westernized diet is seeing a massive increase in diabetes, in hypertension, in heart disease, in cancer. And it's not what we call in medicine a communicable disease. You can't catch diabetes from me. You can catch the flu, but you cannot catch it from me. But if we grow up in the same household, we might have the same eating habits, right? We might deal with our emotional ups and downs by comforting ourselves with food. So I only have 30 minutes, so it's going to be fast. I do aerobic presenting. I lecture. I still work full-time as a nurse. My specialty is wound care. I teach people how to take care of patients with massive traumatic injuries all the way down to a small ulcer on the bottom of the foot. And so I didn't confuse it because I would have grossed you all out, or the majority of you, if I was showing you my normal slides. But we're going to talk really fast. This is a quick little video showing the beginning of digestion. I'm not really talking about my most popular talk. But I am going to talk a little bit about chewing and the impact we make on our body and our body's mandated response once we swallow. So once you and I swallow our food, and please do your 20 chew challenge, don't wolf your food down, chew it, enjoy it, savor it. But from the point I actually swallow, from that point on, everything is involuntary. My body's going to read the food I ate like it would read an instruction manual. And it's going to say, okay, she gave me this and this, now I have to do this. So what we chew on, what we choose to swallow, and I'm not talking bulimia, don't be doing the stuff where you chew and then you regurgitate it out. Our body has to respond in certain chemical and mechanical responses to what we eat. So nurse 45 years, still work full time, take care of a lot of patients or teach others how to do it these days. What actually qualifies me to be up here? Why would I be up here caring deeply about each and every one of you? This was me. Happy on the outside, sad. feeling out of control, embarrassed, unable to do things like I wanted to, limited in my clothing choices. I needed help. I did all the traditional things. I joined Weight Watchers for the first time at 16. 16 years old. I could own the company by now with the amount of times I joined. And I want to dedicate, is my brother-in-law Bob here? He's going to pay the price for that. It's my mom, my sister. I won't apologize for being emotional. Men, just turn your hearing aids off if you don't want to hear me. They've both passed. Mostly from those diseases based on environmental factors, food. They both died of cancer. Close family. My sister Debbie and I were especially close. Older than me by 18 months, always looked out for me. She's the reason that I am here. This journey is all her fault. That was us together. Was it our genetics? It's how we ate as a family. It's how we dealt with food. It's the food we ate, the amount we ate. And this was here before her diagnosis. My shirt says recovering carboholic. Mary, if she's here, yesterday when you were talking, I was in the back because I was still working on this PowerPoint, and I just kept my hands up, both of them. Everything you said, Mary, I said, yes, hiding the wrappers, yes, not wanting people to know, because when you are addicted, you don't want others to know your problems. You hide it. I would wake up in the middle of the night, my husband would be sleeping, and I would get out of bed so I could go eat. Thank you. That's a good friend. Anyway, so she started the low-carb journey before me, and I'd always hang up on her. Oh, gotta go, boss is calling, gotta work. And she finally sent me this. Have any of you seen Dr. Sarah Hallberg's? Oh, yeah. This, because the powder baby, but like Dr. Barry says, is I just didn't want to listen to her. I was enjoying my addiction, as many of us do. But this is a wonderful thing about what if we're treating type 2 diabetes all wrong. My hemoglobin A1C was 6.3, right there at it. And I did not want to give this up. I want you to notice, that's a candy bar in my hand. Mm-hmm. I knew I was getting my picture taken. I wouldn't even put it down. So the one on the right with me in the vest, I'd already lost 25 pounds. That was 7 years ago in that picture. So our food choices, I'm going to give you some basic categories. I'm not talking about protein, fat, macros. Others are going to do that. We have those ultra-processed food-like substances you see on the TV. We have, and those are the ones that are frankenfoods. They're food-like substances. Our ancestors would have never known what they were, and our bodies are not meant to process this with the preservatives and the dyes and the chemicals. My goodness, there's processed. Okay, that's maybe your mashed potato. That's that you buy in the store, or the powdered ones, which I can tell you from previous history before keto, never decide to get rid of expired box of powdered potato flakes by pouring them down your drain. You talk constipation, that poor thing. Anyway. I hope that after today you say, oh, Bob, you're here. You see, everyone say, hi, Bob. Hi. Oh, my. So that's Debbie's husband, my sister that passed, my reason for being here. And wonderful human. We were high school friends, and they were high school sweethearts. Anyway, I hope you stay in these last two bullets. Something you process in your kitchen, chop, 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 or Whole Foods. As many things as without labels, because those are the things that are natural for us to eat. And our body, when we put that in, it says, oh, look at that. I know what to do with that. It's not saying, I don't even know how to spell this thing, this chemical this long. What should I do with it? It has two choices. It absorbs it, or you poop it out. It has to do something with all those chemicals and the dyes. hopefully you poop it out, but hey, a lot of it is. So these processed food-like substances, they hook you. That's a hook. Isn't that funny? I love that picture. All right, our fork will actually hook us because what happens is these foods are hyperpalatable. They have food chemists that look for the bliss point. What that means is they change the chemical formulation until their test subjects go, oh, that was amazing, I want more. Not, oh, that's just too salty, or that's too sweet, which if I'd been, that would have never been my problem, but saying it was too sweet. But what it does is it causes a dopamine release in your brain, which is that like, it's like, I feel better, I'm excited, that was wonderful. But this dopamine hit fades very quickly. And then you look for another hit. This is addiction. They've created it so our hyper-processed foods are addictive in nature. And what happens is then you start looking for another hit, but one cookie doesn't do it anymore. 2. The hallmarks of addiction is frequency and tolerance. I need it more frequently, and I need more of it to get that same comfort response. And not everyone is susceptible to this, to eating problems or disorders as they call it these days. They might have an alcohol issue, but for me, I can no longer ever have a hyper-processed carbohydrate dessert type thing. Why? Do we force a margarita on a recovering alcoholic at dinners? Absolutely. We would never. Yeah, of course Chris does. I want you to see this. Look at, if you can't read it, I put it up in bigger print. This was inside a basket at the grocery store that was filled with candy on sale after Christmas. And what it says, obesity and insulin resistance is well, they should have said are, the risk factors, but that is your risk factor for type 2 diabetes. It's not the consumption of excess sugar. No, you just caught insulin resistance. And I hope one of the takeaways today from not only what I say, but what others say as well, is that I don't want you to look about weight reduction. I want you to look at how do I reduce my insulin. It all goes back to the insulin. Even at Home Depot, you can find this, right? Yeah. Now, do you know as hunter-gatherers, or many years ago, we'd go find those berries because they'd be bright, and we'd go seek them out? All bright, all eye-catching colors. So this is our snapshot of diabetes. It's a tsunami. It is going to absolutely, well, you guys know. Because diabetes affects us from head to toe. It's both a microvessel disease, that means my capillaries, and a macrovessel disease, which means my larger vessels. It impacts all of that. And since every organ in my body must have the capillaries functioning, when those start to close off or become so inflamed that they can't deliver things to that organ, we end up with eye problems, retinopathy. We end up with nephropathy, which is kidney failure. Apathy is never a good thing to have. You never want to have apathy. A pathologist looks for abnormal cells. Retinopathy, nephropathy. We have neuropathy, which is where my nerves, I can't feel, or I have tingling in my feet. I don't have that protective sensation. Is that my count down or my count up? I'm not staring at you guys, I'm looking at my clock. Okay, good. You are intricately and wonderfully made. Your body is so complex and everything interacts with the other part. Exposure to vitamin D, how am I hydrating? What am I putting in my mouth? And it is so complex. Anyone here if Dave Feldman's here, a senior engineer, right? The algorithms, the software algorithms. And if you've ever heard of getting a virus or having some sort of, something in your computer and it causes the programming to go wrong, that's what these ultra-processed foods are doing to us. And it skews all of these data points that work really well most of the time if we eat a more whole food way of eating foods, but it skews everything. So we're going to chew on this. When we eat, we're giving our body instructions, like I already said. Those digested components of food are sorted. The body looks at them. It says, okay, you go here. And it's either used, stored, or evacuated. All right, that's good. think of your fat cells as your savings account in times of famine. Now, when we don't eat, we're also giving our body instructions. We're saying, oh, food may be scarce. Mr. Insulin, you bully hormone, we don't need you right now. Because in the presence of insulin, the body's fat stores cannot be released. So by not eating, the fasting, even if it's all you can do right now is while you sleep, that's fasting. I'm going to grab a sip of my water. Well, it's actually Diet Coke, don't judge. Coming out to my Diet Coke problem. Anyway, those stored calories now can be released. You know what's interesting is our fat stores will oftentimes hold some of the toxins and some of the chemicals. And as that releases, we can get exposure to that again. It's very fascinating when you look on this. So when we look at the roots, I should say, of the chronic disease epidemic that is each of us are facing, glycation, which is where sugar sticks to the proteins in your body, insulin resistance, you could read it. I'm not going to read all of it to you. What I want to focus on is what that does. Much of this is based, I'm not talking about pesticides and environmental toxins and life stress, but what I can control is what I put in my mouth. Once I swallow it, it's out of my control. The body's going to do that. And what happens when insulin resistance happens, when my body is like, oh, my microprocessor, my algorithms are, okay, I'm going to do this. All of these things below the water, that tip of the iceberg effect, are going to be a problem for those of us that don't understand. So what you don't know could hurt you is, to me, something that's a problem. So here, sugar is tricky because it's so sticky. Glycation is where sugar goes to, and Dr. Boz talked a bit about this, I always think of the wheels on the bus go around, the doors on the bus go open and shut, open and shut. I have 11 grandkids. The song, people on the bus get on and off. Sugar gets on the bus, and the bus is the red blood cells, that hemoglobin molecule. It lives for 3 months. Your red blood cells, you have some being born. Every day you have some midlife, and you have some dying. It gets on the bus and stays on the bus until that bus stops working. So sugar, when we consume it, table sugar is part glucose, which is what the insulin deals with, and part fructose. That makes sucrose, which is table sugar. The fructose part has to be dealt with in my liver. We got to protect the liver. It's very important. What happens when these sugar molecules stick to our red blood cells, because through a capillary, it's only wide enough for one red blood cell to tumble through. And when we attach these sugar molecules that don't let go until the red blood cell dies, I want you to think of that as a little splinter in your finger. I have something there that, we're always going to have some glycation, some sugar stuck. That's what your hemoglobin A1C is. That's why they only check it 3 months, because the red blood cell lives 90 days. But I digress. That little bit of inflammation, that little injury, okay, 5 to 7 days, pretty good, but sometimes it runs amok. Have you guys ever heard of the flesh-eating bacteria problem? It's called necrotizing fasciitis. We're seeing a rise on it for many reasons, and literally, if you're bored, I'll show you some pictures. I can gross out pretty much anyone here that isn't in the medical department. So it's sugar, it binds to the proteins, it glycates. A little bit is normal, right? Under 6. 6 seats on the bus out of 100 are taken up. But what happens if we continue to insult our body? The body has to deal with it. When they say your blood sugar's down, it doesn't mean it evaporated. It means your body just stored it. Or if you work out or you understand the value of muscles, muscles are a sponge and they'll use that sugar. That's why resistance training is so important. So one little splinter in my finger versus this. I know, it's so sad, right? What if you could look inside your body and what you were eating was doing this to the inside of you? Undetected for many, many, many years. Because those sugar molecules that grab on to the red blood cell, to the hemoglobin molecule, are there. And now I want you to think of that as sort of ballooned up a little bit, and it's trying to get through the capillaries, and it's trying to tumble, because blood brings in the groceries, and it takes out the trash. We're decreasing the effectiveness by what we eat, what we choose to put in your body. Is this a lecture? I don't want it to come across as something where I'm telling you what to do. I want you to be informed. So that informed self-care, I sat at a conference much like this about 7.5 years ago, and I heard Dr. Westman speak, and I heard some of the other amazing mentors speak, and they're explaining it, and I literally, it was like the scales dropped from my eyes, and I was like, you're kidding me. I've been a nurse how long? And I have a type 1 diabetic daughter who was diagnosed at age 3 after an autoimmune disease. Rachel, those of you that have seen her on some of my videos. And I had no idea. I was like, I can never eat processed carbs again because I will not self-injure myself. But up to that point, I didn't know. I didn't know. I had no idea. I thought it was eat less, move more, count your calories. You're a lazy slob, you're a sloth. No, I didn't understand. I didn't have the concept. So I've said several times that our body has to deal with it. Goes through the stomach, goes down into the small intestines. And what I want you to see here is what do you mean, Cindy, that it impacts my bloodstream and all of my health parameters? Inside our intestines, we have these little tiny peaks and valleys. I'm going to call them villi because that's what they're called. And they are where those nutrients are absorbed and the other molecules that come from the breakdown. And the body's really cool. It says, okay, I can use that. Okay, I can use that. I don't know what to do with that. And what's left behind, the trash, is your poop. It's what it can't use, it poops out. We don't want bad things to be absorbed. But these villi, I want you, if you can see this next, let me do this blow up. Inside of each of those little peaks and valleys, think of it like a little tongues sticking up. There's one cell layer. Have you ever scratched yourself? It's not real deep and you bleed, right? One cell separates all that food and the toxins and the bacteria we're taking in and touching something and then, doing that. We are introducing this hollow tube that allows the outside world in and then out. At this point is where we start to get the absorption. And because it's only one cell thick, if I could take this and flatten out my entire small intestines, I think we have like over 20 feet of them, like that. If I could flatten it out, how much surface area would it take up? How much space is available for my body to deal with this? Size of a tennis court. If I could flatten all that out, and that entire tennis court is covered with one cell layer. Is it delicate? More than we think. On top of that layer, there's mucosa. Mucosa, I want you to think that is slime. This is not children's snot, to be like. This is that mucosal layer that sort of frosts those one cell layers that go up and down. And what happens is when we eat food that our body's never been exposed to, this mucosal layer can be damaged. Omega-6s, all the types of seed oils that they want you to, vegetable oils that they want you to consume. And what happens, this one cell layer, now look carefully at this. The mucosal layer is on top of the little tongues, the villi. There's your one cell layer, and literally tucking up to that are your capillaries. Bring in the groceries, take out the trash. Things come out, those tight junctions let absorption happen, the circulation picks it up, and I haven't mentioned the lymph, but I will. And what happens, that one cell layer, they're what they call tight junctions. Have you ever, hold hands with me. Okay, we're gonna cross hands and we're gonna have a tight junction here, right? It's hard to get through. Red Rover, send somebody on over or whatever, yeah. But when we have inflammations, these start to loosen apart. Now I've got leaky gut, right? We've got the ability, unfortunately, for larger molecules, bacteria, actual chunks of food, to leak through that. It's called increased intestinal permeability. We don't want that. We just don't want that. Now, the brown thing sticking up in between the arterial capillary and the venous capillary is your lymph, beginning of your lymph system. Circulation goes around in a circle. Our lymph system is a one-way draw, and it picks up the things that we don't want going back into the circulation. And what happens is as this stuff is pulled in and we start to destroy that mucus layer, we start to thin that out, and then those tight junctions start to loosen. We have all sorts of problems with our immune system. Autoimmune. My immune system, which is supposed to protect me from bad things, can turn and start to destroy me. Lupus, arthritis, all the different things, those are oftentimes triggered by the immune system because its main job is to find invaders and go, and it should filter it out prior to it getting back into the bloodstream. So here's our leaky gut. Here's our increased intestinal permeability. Now those larger molecules, those other things are like the free drinks at last year's thing. Oh my God, look at there, we can go on in. It's just going to be so much fun. And we have this invasion of particles and matter that now should be pooped out that now can get in where it shouldn't be. And it's either going to go into the bloodstream or it's going to be picked up by the lymph system, and the lymph system goes on attack. And all these dyes and all these chemicals, it's like, what? I don't know what to do with that. And so what it's going to do is the lymph system is going to pick it up. Have you ever had swollen lymph nodes? That is the central hub where all these little, I think I might have a picture of it, these little lymph channels collect, and it goes on high alert, and it says to the National Guard, oh my God, we've got an infection. It could just be a chemical that's in your processed food. It could be bacteria that got through the gut that wouldn't if I had the tight junctions. It's so important what we eat. So this lymph system cleanses, it recruits, it starts the immune process. It's the highway for all the National Guard to come in. They collect in our lymph nodes. They have a fight. And eventually it dumps back up into our venous system, up in our chest. And whatever comes back in, all that fluid that picked up, if it isn't adequately purified, then we have our software algorithms are messed up. One-way channels opens up lets larger particles come in. This is a picture of a lymph node. So all these lacteals feed into that from the lymphatic system. Oh, and do you know your brain has its own lymph drainage? It's called glymphatic. There's a wonderful gal that works in the aerospace industry that we work with wounds at my job. And she says, sleep as flat as you can and still breathe, because the lymph drainage requires us to give yourself a brain bath at night. It's amazing that the flatter we can sleep, the more that glymph in our brain, compared to lymph, because we've got that blood-brain barrier, is going to allow all those byproducts of our brain, which is such an active organ. So I digress. I'm going to run out of time. Now, haven't mentioned the microbiome. What about those little bacteria that are supposed to be there? We need a robust protection. Do you like that they're scrubbing the mucosa? I think this is the cutest picture. Of course, I think strange things are cute. But there's good bacteria. They're not all bad. And what they're going to do is they're going to scrub a dub, and they're going to try to themselves take over and then feed on the stuff that shouldn't be there. So the richness of our microbiome is a whole nother. There's so much that we're still learning about that. But what I want you to think about is when you have something delicious to eat that's full of Frankenfood type ultra processed, immediately is so, you get this brief hit, and then you want more. Maybe I should just speak to myself, and then I wanted more. I wanted more. It impacts every organ in our body. Every organ needs to be fed, but our food source has become adulterated in many ways, for profit, to be honest, in my opinion. So you are intricately, wonderfully made. So our food choices, let's chew on this. Let's think through our food choices. Ultra-processed, algorithm's going to take over once you swallow it. Minimally processed, body has a little bit better idea what to do with it. Something you chop up in your kitchen, now we're talking. Something that you can eat on its own. The body can heal. This whole thing last night or yesterday with Dr. Berry, when they're talking about my 2.5 years keto, heart attack, 59 years of poor choices. I may pay a price for things that were damaged beyond the ability of my now eating lifestyle for it to repair. But what I do have, and let's chew on this for just a minute, food, if you look it up, it's defined as a substance that provides nourishment and it promotes health. It lets your body function, okay? Let's look at the proper human diet, low carb, keto, ketovore, carnivore, whatever. When we eat food and it's a substrate that's going to give me nourishment and help me live a robust life, that's food. A poison, if I had cyanide up here, you'd say, "Ooh, it looks really tasty. I've seen those commercials. Can I have a little lick? Just one, can I?" All right? Poison is a substance that promotes illness or harm. It can kill you. I forget who spoke about it yesterday, but they said if you took a bite of that donut and you immediately dropped dead, you probably wouldn't eat it if you saw someone do that. But because this process of inflammation and insulin resistance and changes to our organs and our microprocessor of all the things that happen is so slow and insidious, we don't realize the poison that we're eating. So 90% of current food production is processed. Therefore, it's poison, not food. I didn't say that. This is Mark Bittman. He's a food writer. It's just so powerful. And I know it's more complex than this. I'm not avoiding pesticides, environmental toxins, groundwater contamination, stress, how you manage things. But it can fuel our problems or it can feed our health. And hopefully today, you're like, oh, that's all I want you to take away. You'll find your own path. You'll make your own choices. It'll vary. I'm very different now in what I eat now than I was 7 years ago. I didn't plan it. It's just I've acclimated and I found things that I feel better with or not. What we eat is more important than we ever knew. I know, I was 59, lifetime of obesity. I was never a normal size, always the heaviest kid in my class, always. Had to pay someone to take me to the senior prom in high school, literally, because I was senior class president. I had to be there. No matter where you're at today, no matter your age today, you don't have to stay there. You don't. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. If it was easy, we wouldn't have this cruise, right? It's worth it. There's hope. And there's healing. By just understanding the power of our food choices before we swallow. So, in closing, I put that in again because it's so important. Let's do that. Proverbs says, the one who gets wisdom loves life. The one who cherishes understanding will soon prosper. And that's my takeaway, prayer, hope, wish, is that you gain wisdom, you gain understanding, so that you can make informed choices and you can take care of yourself. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time.